Retirement Playbook with Rick and Granger Hughes.
Hold on to your hats, folks. Here he comes.
He spent 25 years as a leader and coach on the basketball court, and now is ready to help coach you to achieve your retirement goals.
Looking at the new reality, what's happening today, what's happening in the future compared to the old reality. Things have changed.
He is joined each week by his son and business partner, Granger Hughes.
It's very, very important to show a client, here's the possibility of where we could be, here's where we have been, and here's how we get there.
Put the coach on your team, working through the X's and O's of a customized retirement strategy.
That's what Granger and I do, again, on a day-to-day basis, is try to educate people and let them know what their options are.
Everybody's ready to go. He's ready to go. I'm ready to go. And you're ready to go.
This is the Retirement Playbook with Rick and Granger Hughes.
Good morning and welcome to the one and only Retirement Playbook with the father-son team of Rick and Granger Hughes of the Hughes Retirement Group and myself. My name is Chris Swan. Thank you for joining us today. 423-664-4203 is the phone number. That's how you get in touch with the Hughes Retirement Group. 423-664-4203. The offices in Cleveland, Chattanooga, Knoxville, Birmingham. The number is the same, 423-664-4203, and online at HughesRetirementGroup.com. On today's show, we're going to take a look at planning for retirement if you're 10 years away, 5 years away, or even less than that. But before we get into that, gentlemen, how you doing today?
Doing very well, Chris. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Granger, you good?
Doing well, Chris. Enjoyed my dad's birthday this past week. We went up to Knoxville, rather, to watch Tennessee beat Kentucky. So we had a good time this weekend.
Heck of a birthday present, absolutely. And happy birthday to you, Rick. You know, we mentioned on the show, again, offices in Cleveland, Chattanooga, Knoxville, Birmingham. I do want to mention for those people who may be listening or in the Birmingham area, you guys have some retirement classes coming up that way in Birmingham. Samford University in Birmingham, March 25th and 26th. It is a 2-night session coming up at the end of the month. You can get more information on that by calling 423-664-4203. But let's go ahead and move into the show here. This weekend actually marks a pretty interesting anniversary.
You couldn't tell it was a big day that day because the market had been falling and we didn't know it was not going to fall any farther.
The stocks were going down and down and down every day, and people were wondering, when is this going to end?
I was a stock analyst 5 years removed from college, and I only knew that stocks went up, never down.
So it was 10 years ago this weekend, we saw the bottom of the 2007-2009 bear market, the beginning of the end of the financial crisis, the Great Recession. Since then, a lot of us have seen our retirement portfolios grow substantially. But what lessons do you think we should take away from everything that happened back then?
I think we should always remember, Chris, and a lot of times as Americans, sometimes we're easy to forget. That obviously was a bad period of time. You're looking at the NASDAQ and the S&P and the Dow being down 50 points percentage-wise down. Again, we've been in a bull market now. It's the longest run we've had. And so sometimes people think, things are just going to continue to go up, up, up. Now, we have the fourth quarter. If we go back to December, which it was the worst since 1931, that may have brought people's memories back to thinking, oh no, are we going to be going back to where we were in 2007 and 9?
And I think we ought to also take this away from it, Chris. I mean, eventually, as we've been told most of our lives, historically, the stocks will come back, and they have. But I also think you have to sit there and say, how old am I today, and when do I want to retire? Because your time horizon versus a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old may not be the same. You may be looking to retire in the next 3 years or 5 years. You may not have time for those equities to come back. So I think proper diversification, I think making sure that you've taken some risk off of the table. Obviously, just diversifying doesn't mean that you're going to eliminate risk, but there are tools out there that you can eliminate market risk, which it adds its own version of diversity in your portfolio. Diversifying between different equity markets, not just diversifying between the NASDAQ, Dow, and the S&P, but diversifying globally. Looking at fixed income securities, things like that, going that step further where you're really analyzing the data of the portfolio that you have, making sure from a risk measurement standpoint, when you start looking at things like standard deviation and Sharpe ratio, that you have a properly diversified portfolio so that hopefully you're not taking a beating when stocks are going down. Because a lot of times, we look at our 401ks and we're going crazy when things are going well. We're excited and we're thinking, wow, we're really making a lot of money. But unfortunately, that means that typically when those indices turn the other direction, we're pretty sick to our stomach. So I think having that level of diversification, maybe you're not hitting a home run every day, but you're not striking out every day either, so that you can have a little bit of peace of mind as you head into retirement.
Ranger, you made a great statement, taking some of that risk off the table. You know, you and I personally know someone that in 2017 who was considering taking some of that risk off the table, but the markets were doing so well, we call it the Trump bump, that they said, I want to stay in because the markets are doing well. And obviously that was a good decision at that time, but they did end up staying in longer than they probably should have, because then the fourth quarter of 2018 hit them and they lost close to $75,000 to $100,000. Wow. So the point you made, taking some of that risk off the table, would be something that I think folks need to look at.
I think it's pretty easy to get complacent with just how the market has performed in the past 10 years. And you bear in mind, there are younger people in the working world right now who have their money in the market and they've never known the market to be down, to have these substantial dips in the market. But for those of us who are nearing retirement, we've seen 2007, 2009, we've seen 2001 and before that. And so, like you guys said, maybe 2018 is more of a wake-up call. And if you are getting closer and closer to retirement, it may be time to maybe reel back in and go into a more safe, some form of guaranteed stream of income instead. And that's where the Hughes Retirement Group can come in and help out with putting together that retirement strategy, 423-664-4203, to help you make sure that, whatever may come in the market, whether 2018 was a sign of things to come. Because at some point, let's face it, you are going to see not just one market correction in retirement, you're more than likely going to see multiple corrections. And having a plan to withstand the ups and downs of that is pretty critical to ensuring a secure retirement. 423-664-4203 is the number, 423-664-4203, or online at hughesretirementgroup.com. Now, planning for the day you leave the 9-to-5 world behind is ever-changing challenge. But guys, let's play some hypotheticals here. Let's say you're 10 years away from retirement. What should people be doing right now to make sure that they're financially prepared?
Well, according to research by Fidelity, they say you should have roughly 7 times your current salary in savings. And that puts you in a position where you could end up having 10 times your final salary. Now, not everybody's in position to do something like that, but that's something that you need to begin looking at. We always say it's never too late to start planning. Some people wait until it's almost too late. So it's better to prepare when you're very young, because there's, if you're blessed to continue to live, that day is going to come. Another big thing is if you have a mortgage payment, begin attacking that mortgage debt, pay that down. If you started out with a 30-year mortgage, going into retirement would be great if you eliminate that mortgage altogether. So that is something that in that 10 years out that you need to be attacking. The other thing is, how should you be investing? Well, if you're 10 years out, Chris, it would be wise to invest to growth. You want to make sure that you're growing those accounts, so when it comes that time where you're hitting that distribution phase, that maybe, just like we talked in the previous segment, maybe you're taking some of that money away from risk and putting it in something safe.
Now, 10 years out is a decent time away, and if people are listening right now that are in that mindset, they do have 10 years to go before they retire. That's fantastic. But let's move the timeline up a little bit further. What if someone is 5 years away from retirement? What should they be doing to plan right now, 5 years away?
Well, Chris, as you know, our niche market is kind of 10 to 5 years out. But if you're looking at 5 years specifically, and this is according to the article, obviously it's talking about attacking your debt. And Dad's told me this, as I was a young kid. It doesn't matter how much you make, it matters how much you spend. So if you're spending more than you make, you can't have a successful life, really, in the grand scheme of things. So it's the same thing as we head towards retirement. If we're not attacking our debt, if we're not debt-free, as we enter those retirement years, it's going to put undue stress on us that we really could avoid. And the article talks about, doing some home improvements on the cheap. So repainting cabinets, bathroom makeovers, things like that, fresh landscaping, potentially, setting yourself up to downsize, things like that. And then how to not get fired, it says. So avoid the burnout. Do things that you enjoy doing. So, we always say retire from something to something. Or if you're still doing your job, make sure that job is highlighting your best assets, okay? So, make sure that you're doing something that you can sustain. But, as far as investing, as we get closer to that 5 years out from retirement, you probably, as we've talked about, want to take a little bit more of that risk off the table. And, the biggest thing that we would try to start stressing at this time is, once again, back to those buckets of money. So not just what allocation you have if you're invested in mutual funds or growth funds or whatever it is, but where are those funds invested? Are they invested in a taxable account where you're going to be subject to capital gains, whether it be long-term or short-term? Are they invested in a traditional IRA where you're going to be subject to future tax rates on whatever that may be when you turn to 70 and a half? Or are they going to be invested in tax-free accounts? Would it be a Roth or a Roth conversion or a properly structured life insurance policy? So there's different strategies out there that you can invest in, and you can invest anywhere from low growth to moderate growth to high growth, obviously taking on more and more risk, and that's all important to understand, but you also want to understand how is that money going to be taxed. So where you invest that money, not just the portfolios that you invested in, but the taxable accounts that you invested in, we believe is crucial, because as we get into those retirement years, once again, we want to make sure that we're protecting our Social Security. We want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves from potential IRMA costs on Medicare or Part D prescription drugs. So there's things that we want to start taking into consideration, because we don't want to be shelling out $500,000 or $1 million for the next 30, 35 years in just Social Security tax. So I think that's important to really hone in on as we get closer to those retirement years.
And another thing, if I could just kind of editorialize here to maybe help you out with as you approach retirement, the ideal people that are listening right now, ideally really speaking to people that are 10 years, 5 years out, is keep in mind these retirement classes that the Hughes Retirement Group teaches throughout the year. I got classes coming up in Birmingham, Samford University of Birmingham, March 25th and March 26th. You can get more information on that, including how to register, by calling 423-664-4203. If you're not in the area and you just want to speak with the Hughes Retirement Group, that number is the same, 423-664-4203. I think a lot of people, when they sit out in the working world, it's a lot of accumulation, but the strategy does kind of change as you get closer and closer to retirement. It's kind of like, I think I've used this analogy before, it's kind of like in a game of football. If you're amassing a good lead the first three quarters, when you get into the fourth quarter, you kind of want to go into that victory formation and secure and preserve that lead that you have, maybe go into more of a defensive strategy. And I know it's basketball season and I'm using the wrong analogies the wrong time of the year, but it's the same sort of situation. And that's something that the Hughes Retirement Group can help out with. 423-664-4203 or online at HughesRetirementGroup.com. Now, we've been talking about 10 years out, 5 years away from retirement. But what should people be doing if they're just a year or so away from leaving the working world behind? Let's say that 2019 to 2020 is the year. What should they be doing to prepare for it, Rick?
Well, Chris, I go back to my coaching days. We would practice every day. The day before a game or the day of a game, you would have a walkthrough to kind of remind you of what the opposing team was going to do and what you needed to do in terms of execution to try to win the game. It's the same thing with retirement. As you said, we talked about 10 years or 5 years, but now we're only 1 year away. So we need to begin to practice. And in other words, you should have a budget in place. If you don't, you need to develop one. That is very, very important. Because it's just like what we said. It's not about how much you make, but how much you're going to spend. Cash flow is important. So in other words, set a budget and try a year before you retire to work just with that budget. See how it's going to work. Test it. And guess what? If it doesn't work, you have time to make modifications. And so that's something that we would stress that would be very important, is kind of test drive your budget. Another thing is simplify your accounts. You may have a 401k, you may have several traditional IRAs or maybe Roth IRAs, depending on where your buckets of money are. You might want to begin to simplify and narrow some of those down. Possibly could lower cost, make it a little bit more simple for you. Again, you may want to look and say, do I want a part-time job? I don't want to continue working full-time and putting in all these hours, but do I want a part-time job? Maybe at your present employer, they would allow you to do that, or maybe you look at a new type of gig that you would work from a part-time standpoint. Is that something you need to help supplement your income? And then another big one, because we work in Medicare as well as trying to help our clients have a stress-free, is a lot of people think that Medicare is going to take care of dental insurance. And that's absolutely false. It does not. Even if you get a Medicare supplement, a supplement doesn't cover dental insurance. Now, there are some types of Medicare plans out there that do, but I would suggest before you retire to try to get all your dental needs taken care of and then begin to look at a comprehensive dental plan that you may want in retirement. Don't wait till you retire, till you've lost your health insurance, and then you've put yourself in a situation that maybe you do need dental insurance. Now, why am I mentioning dental insurance? That can be a great expense to someone as you're getting older, because obviously it's just like a car. As we get older, things begin to break down and need more maintenance. So that's an important item that I would suggest that people look at also.
It reminds me, I need to go and make my dental appointment for the beginning of this year. I'm not a year out from retirement, but that is a good reminder. And again, if this year or next year is the year that you're going to retire, and you really want to buckle down and take a look, test drive your budget, simplifying your accounts, that's something that the Hughes Retirement Group can help you out with. 423-664-4203 is the number. 423-664-4203. Again, I want to remind people in the Birmingham area, we've got retirement classes coming up to continue the education that we provide here on the show that the Hughes Retirement Group provides when you sit down and speak with them in the classroom setting. Samford University in Birmingham, March 25th and 26th. You can get more information by calling that same number, 423-664-4203. Okay, now I am a known procrastinator. I have been my entire life. Let's say that there is somebody, and this may not even be a degree of procrastination. It just may be somebody has a calendar, the 2019 calendar in their house, and they have a date circled, and it's coming up this summer. They're going to retire this year. So if you're 3 months away from leaving the working world behind, what should be on your list? What should be those last second things you need to do to accomplish before walking out the office door for the last time?
Well, Chris, this is one that we see quite a bit, and this is something that you really have to take into consideration if maybe you have an age gap between you and your spouse, healthcare or insurance. Making sure that if you're going to retire, where does that leave your spouse? I've seen in the past where some companies will continue to carry that spouse until they're 65. It's very rare if the primary holder is not continuing to work. So make sure that you've got that nailed down, because you may go to retire and have it set up but not have accounted for your spouse now having a health insurance plan that's going to cost $800 a month. And the benefits not really be that extensive. So definitely nail that down. Understanding your pension, how is it going to be set up? Is it going to be set up is it going to be a period certain where it's going to pay for a period of time? Is it going to pay your spouse half if you were to pass on? Is it going to give her all of it? Does it give beneficiaries options? Do you have an option for a lump sum? So understanding what your options are with a pension, because as we've talked about in the past with pensions, if you can control that asset, you can put it into a traditional IRA. And if you fear that future tax rates are in play, then you can start converting that to Roth conversions. So it gives you a little bit more control. You get to control how it's allocated. You don't have to worry about how that particular employer or company is managing that retirement account. When we talk about DuPont and TVA's pensions being underfunded by billions and billions of dollars, you don't have to worry about that potential loss there. And then retirement savings, taking a look at your 401ks or 403bs, wherever you're working, whether it's nonprofit or a private company, taking a look at that, seeing where you stand, seeing how you're allocated in the last few months, because the last thing you'd want is to be very, very aggressive in those last 3 months that you're working, to take another big hit like we've experienced in the past. So make sure that you're adjusting that as planned. Then taking a look at Social Security. Typically, we start looking at Social Security. For most of our clients, obviously we try to suggest them to defer as long as we can in most cases, but not in all cases. You can start drawing most people right now at 62. So obviously you're only going to get 75% of your benefit, but you can start kind of preparing for that, getting details on what you're going to get, what 80% of your benefit would be, what 90% of your, so forth. And then you can call actually Social Security to do that, or go to ssa.gov and do it online. It's pretty easy if you do it online. It just takes about 10-15 minutes to do. So. And then price out aging in place. So if you're wanting to stay home, budget for those expenses. Budget for bathroom renovations, door levers, stair entrances, wider doorways, lowered kitchen cabinets and appliances. So kind of adjusting for that. And then kind of back to yours, Dad, where you talked about, having a job and things of that nature. They kind of utilize something called an elevator speech here. They say the job hunters use a 30-second pitch to kind of say, it's just a brief little description of what their career goals are and a little bit about themselves. So having that, because as we always say, retire from something to something, to be able to have options if you want to go back to work, if you want to keep active and keep doing what you love, have that on hand in case you need to utilize that.
I know there's a lot of information we've thrown out there, kind of like a checklist, and we've talked before about how people spend more time planning for a vacation than they do their actual retirement. But, if you're getting down to the wire here and you do plan on retiring, whether it be, in the next 5 years, the next year, the next 3 months, what have you, and we've thrown a lot of information out there and you're not sure that you got it all, well, the good news is that, if you go to HughesRetirementGroup.com, you can check out previous editions of the Retirement Playbook. This one will be up there in a couple of days for you to check out and listen to at your discretion and kind of go over that. Or also, you can just call the Hughes Retirement Group directly and they can help walk you through that. 423-664-4203 is the number. 423-664-4203. Rick and Granger, the Hughes Retirement Group, again, offices in Cleveland, Chattanooga, Birmingham, Knoxville. The number, the same though, 423-664-4203. Now, a new report from Bankrate.com ranks the 50 states in terms of their appeal to retirees, and Tennessee comes in at number 21, so that's pretty good. My home state, Georgia, number 37. What sort of factors do you advise clients to consider as they think about where they want to live out their golden years?
Well, we know, Chris, a lot of people from the north especially want to move south, warmer weather. A lot of people move to Florida. We call those the snowbirds, obviously. So, again, I think something that people want to look at are taxes. I heard the other day in the state of California, and whether this stat is correct, I'm not sure, but they said 53 million people from the state of California want to get out of the state because of taxes. And when I look at California, for example, California right now is 48th in the country in taxes. New York is 49. So when we look at Tennessee, Tennessee is 14th. Alabama, I'm mentioning Alabama because we work in the Alabama area also, is 35, and Georgia is 36. But there's a lot of different areas that people choose. One is weather, one is taxes, and there's some other areas out there that people, are interested in as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you look on here, cost of living is, I think South Dakota is 19, Utah is 25, Idaho 12. So those are your top three to kind of show you where you're at. Mississippi's number one as far as cost of living. I think that plays into it quite a bit. As you said, that we see a lot of snowbirds coming in here. So I think cost of living, taxes, those are going to be two kind of driving forces. But weather is huge. Obviously, your grandmother and my great-grandmother moved down to Florida in her later years because she wanted to be in warmer weather. Overall well-being, healthcare quality. I know even in Florida, some of the healthcare facilities they have down there have really come a long way. So kind of catering towards that environment. And then what kind of culture do you want to live in? What kind of crime rate do they have? So taking all those things into consideration, I think, is pretty important as you get ready to retire. Where do you want, what kind of lifestyle do you want to live? And then picking a place that's going to suit that.
Whatever you want to do in retirement, whatever you want to achieve in retirement, wherever you want to live in retirement, it's important to have a plan for that. Once you have that plan, once you have that framework in mind, what you want to do, then you can put together the pieces to fill out that puzzle. And that's something the Hughes Retirement Group can help you out with. 423-664-4203, 423-664-4203. Also, you can go online to HughesRetirementGroup.com. You can check out, there's a link to their YouTube channel in the top right corner. Their educational videos, including one of my favorite videos, because we reference it a good bit. It's a good visual explanation of the buckets of money strategy. Again, that's up there at the top right corner at HughesRetirementGroup.com. So guys, we're coming up on the end of the show here, but I want to end with a little bit of a fun note and a little bit of a throwback.
Coming April 17th, the unexpected, the new Ford Mustang, brilliant new kind of car. With an unexpected variety of options, Mustang is the one car that's designed to be designed by you. Get ready to meet the unexpected, April 17th at your Ford dealers. Mustang is only days away.
If that commercial sounded a little old to you, well, there's a good reason for that. It was 55 years ago this week that commercial aired, and back in 1964 that Ford began production on the very first Mustang. By the way, that first Mustang, the 1964 Ford Mustang, originally sold for $2,368. Starting price for a 2019 model, if you look lately, if you haven't, I'll go ahead and tell you, more than $26,000. So I feel like that's a pretty good example of what inflation can do to the buying power of your dollar, and maybe something that people should keep in mind as they approach retirement.
Well, Chris, it's funny. When we test these portfolios, one of the things that we do is we'll run a side-by-side. We'll show them what they need in today's dollars, and then we'll show them what they need in future dollars. And a lot of times when we get to that future dollar, and it's obviously an astronomical number because we've adjusted for 2.5% to 3% inflation depending on the particular case, and they're shocked, and they're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to be able to retire? Obviously, they're not thinking of their Social Security continuing to be there and things of that nature, but it's usually a large number. So I think when we think long term and we think about just a large bucket of money, what we would actually need to just spend down if we were going to theoretically, if you look at future dollars, it could be astronomical. Look, 1964, 55 years ago, the Mustang, like you said, was $2,000. Now it's $26,000 starting price, $26,000 or more. It's pretty startling. I remember years ago when the Hummer came out and it was $50,000, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, $50,000 for a vehicle. Now it's like I can't get a Prius for $50,000. So auto prices are getting astronomical. So obviously you can get a Prius for less, but just exaggeration there. But I think understanding purchasing power is huge because that is a risk we all face. And as we continue to print money and as we see this interest on the national debt rise, I think it's going to become even a larger issue because there's only so much they can do. As they continue to build this debt and they continue to print money, inflation is going to come along with that. So when you look at things like market risk and you look at things like taxes and you look at things like healthcare, you also have to account for inflation because that's going to rise with all of those different avenues there. So when you think about, hey, I've got $1 million. What's my target number to get $1 million? Well, if you're not growing your money, if your money's just sitting under a mattress and you have $1 million when you retire at 60, that $1 million is not going to be the same at age 90.
Well, Granger, it's like you just said, people that have CDs, for example. Until here recently, CDs might earn you 0.5% at best. There are some at a little higher than that now, but let's say it's even earning you 1%. If we look back the past 20 years, inflation has grown to 2% annually, and you compound that can be a major problem. So if you're sitting out there and you have a CD or your money's in savings and you're concerned with that growth and keeping up with inflation, give us a call here. We'll show you some strategies that you potentially can grow your money beyond inflation, and it could help you again from the accumulation value.
We talk all the time on the show about how taxes are going to be a big part of your retirement, or whether or not you think about it and how it should definitely be planned for. Inflation, also another one of those things that you definitely plan for when it comes to retirement. And that is, again, something that the Hughes Retirement Group can help you out with when it comes time to putting together your retirement plan. 423-664-4203. That's how you get in touch with Rick and Granger, the Hughes Retirement Group. One more time, 423-664-4203, and online at HughesRetirementGroup.com. This has been the one and only Retirement Playbook with Rick and Granger Hughes. My name is Chris Swan. As always, genuinely, thank you so much for tuning in and joining us. We hope that you've gotten some information out of this show that you find of value. And again, 423-664-4203. Before we go, gentlemen, you get the final word.
Well, Chris, you just mentioned taxes, and we always say this. If you don't have a plan for your money, I can guarantee you the government does.
You've been listening to the Retirement Playbook with Rick and Granger Hughes. Tune in again next week at this same time for more information on building a customized retirement strategy. You can contact Hughes Retirement Group at 423-664-4203 or online at HughesRetirementGroup.com.
The information covered today is designed to provide general information on the subjects covered. It is not, however, intended to provide specific legal or tax advice. It cannot be used to avoid tax penalties or to promote, market, or recommend any tax plan or arrangement. You are encouraged to consult your tax attorney or advisor. By contacting us, you may be provided with information regarding the purchase of insurance products, including annuities. Guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurer. Riders may be available at an additional cost. Product and features may vary from state to state. For full details on how life insurance works, including fees, expenses, and costs, contact our office at 423-664-4203.
Rick and Granger Hughes are investment advisor representatives of Retirement Wealth Advisors, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. This information should not be considered tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult with professionals specializing in the fields of tax, legal, accounting, or investments regarding the applicability of this information for their situation. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments can fluctuate, and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Licensed in Tennessee. Numbers 927-054 and 998-505. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurer. Fixed insurance and annuity product guarantees are subject to the claims-paying ability of the issuing company and are not offered by Retirement Wealth Advisors.